Welcome, everyone, to the Warrior Odyssey Show. I'm your host, Joshua Cuthbertson, and this is episode 9. And I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to my good friend, Sarah Mackenzie.
Hello everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm super pumped to be on with Josh here. It's such a blessing.
Thank you for jumping on. So, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone and talk about what you do?
So I in the smallest of facts, I am a life coach, but every second person's a life coach these days. So what I actually do and the basis of what I do is all centered around self-love. So I teach people ultimately how to love themselves, how to love their life, how to love what they do, and if they don't love what they do, how to find something they do love doing. I also am a Reiki practitioner, so I work with a lot of the energy fields. I do card readings and intuitive healings as well. I run self-love workshops. I've got a self-love program. So basically, I am pretty much like a beginner in the coaching space, opening up. This is my first year working completely for myself as well. So it's very exciting, very new. But so far, I'm absolutely loving being able to do this work, helping people, healing people, and just guiding people to living a better life. I got into this space because I really needed to live a better life myself, and I went on my own self-development journey, which became a spiritual journey, and eventually ended up here being like, actually, I'm going to teach people how to do all this stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Interesting. So, last time we spoke, you were studying to be a primary school teacher. How did you go from that to doing this?
Well, that wasn't the last time we spoke because that was a very long time ago, but
Yeah.
oh gosh, the story is long, but I will try and cut it down. After high school, I did not want to go, and I didn't want to go to uni because everyone's like, got to go to uni. So I tried to do the wrong thing. I tried to do the different thing. Tried to like follow a different path. I didn't like that either, and I think I got into teaching because I used to teach at Pony Club, so horses, little kids on horses, and I thought, oh yeah, so maybe I'll do teaching. And I realized very quickly that teaching children without the horse involved was not for me. I think I did 2 years there before I transferred into a degree for management. So still teaching, but teaching adults. And again, after a couple of years of study, I ended up getting my degree and doing all that. So I was at uni for about 5 years in total, with a year in between where I took off. I kind of decided that also management in that environment, like the office environment, was also not for me. I've always been, I guess, called to help people and teach people. And if there was a group assignment or something at uni or school, I was always the one to put my hand up to want to lead the group. And I guess I've always had this kind of propensity to guide people, sometimes to my own detriment because some people don't want to be told what to do. So sometimes it hasn't been great for me. But in time, obviously, I've learned like where is the most appropriate time to teach and guide and coach. So yeah, when I finished uni, I went and got a full-time job, which I very quickly was like, I hate this. Like I was working in an office, and it was not for me. I couldn't handle it. I lasted 2 years in three different jobs. And I think about 6 months into the first one was when I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this life coach thing. Like it was just popping up on social media. People were being life coaches. I was already studying to be a PT because I'd been working at a gym before that. So that was my original, like, I'm gonna teach people fitness because I was really into that at the time. And yeah, I just eventually sort of started to go down the life coaching route. I got a scholarship to a life coaching course, which was kind of like, the universe was like, here you go. This is the thing that we want you to do. It was just dropped in my lap. I did a couple of courses with them. I did an NLP as well, which is neuro linguistic programming. And then I got comfortable at my full time job and didn't do anything for about a year until again I got uncomfortable. And I think when we get uncomfortable is when we decide to make change. And I got uncomfortable in another full time job, the last one that I had. It got really toxic and just really nasty. And I was like, actually, I started this coaching business. I need to pursue this. So I started to pursue it, and the moment I did, I opened my doors and I called in clients, and I started doing Reiki work. And the moment I did all that, again, it was like the universe was like, gotcha, no problem. And I had just people walking through the door, like people I'd never met, contacting me and wanting to come and work with me. And I was just like gobsmacked. So I guess I had to listen. I had to listen to that sign from the universe. And now we're here and I work for myself. So eventually I listened hard enough.
That is incredible. That's a true sign that your purpose is being revealed to you throughout your chapters. That's really cool. So tell me exactly when you say you are a life coach and you more or less focus on self-love and love as a topic. Can you expand on that?
So the reason I got into, I guess, self-love, and like when I say I'm a life coach, I like if you want help with your relationship, you want help with the business, you want help with this, like whatever it is, come like, I'm a life coach. I will help with any environment, but my avenue that I go through is self-love. And self-love is, to me, it's that confidence in yourself, that being okay with who you are, what you show up, like how you show up in the world, your values, your morals, like your actions, your thoughts. Like it's like genuinely being like, this is who I am and I'm pretty good with that. And we can get caught up in self-love being this grandiose thing that's like so unachievable, but it's not. It's just I'm okay with the person that I am and I'm doing the work to continue to be that better version of me. And like I teach self-love through all of these other areas of life, because if you have self-love, you have self-confidence, you have self-trust, you are very self-aware, you know what you like and what you don't like, and how you shop in the world, all these things and you're good with them. Then you can go out and you can get a business, or you can create a business, or go and get a job, or go into a job interview, like even going into a relationship, or dealing with relationship problems and stuff like that. When you have that self-love as that base, that core thing, so that sense of self that you're totally good with, when you have that, all the other things are a little bit easier. Because we see people, and I definitely saw this all the time in the full-time office space. People hate their lives. They hate their lives, and then they come to work and they're freaking miserable, and they make everybody else's lives miserable because they're miserable. And it's like, if they had some self-love and some self-respect and were happy with the life that they were living, maybe they wouldn't come to work and treat other people like shit. So you see it, and the same in relationships. You see relationships that are just constantly in turmoil, and it's like both of those partners in separate, they need to do their self-love work, because when they have their self-love work, then they can come together in a partnership. And I just see it time and time again. So that's why I was like, I'm going to teach people self-love, because I think that is like the basis, the core basis for so many things. Like once we have that, then we can thrive. And like I'll then coach you through a relationship or through whatever, but we're going to start with self-love. So that's just kind of where I ended up with it. There are different definitions and different ideas, and everyone's kind of got a different idea of it. But in actual fact, I just think it's just being okay and good with who you are, and being willing to change, as well as confident with who you are. So yeah, kind of it's an interesting perception of it, but yeah, that's just mine.
Interesting. So, and when you start off with a client, what, how exactly can you explain how you proceed with with a client that just walked in the door and perhaps they want to, make their lives better, or feel just more confident within themselves. How do you start off with this aspect of self love? Because I'm struggling to understand what self love actually is, because I've never really delved into it myself. I always thought that because I'm not happy with where I am, that must mean, I must get to somewhere to become happy, to become my ideal version of myself. So I've always sat in this space of, wanting the ideal self. So does that make sense? How does one yeah, begin to understand what you mean from my perception, anyways.
I'll give you a bit of both. Um, so my process when I bring in someone new, if they come to me with something specific, then we'll go for that. We'll aim for that, but we'll come from my avenue of the self love stuff. Whereas what I actually do, if anyone's just like, I just want to work with you, I send them a questionnaire and it's got basic questions like, would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? How kind are you to yourself? You know, how do you do receiving compliments? Do you have boundaries? Like stuff like that. Really, really simple questions, because from those simple questions, the answers, I can find out a lot about how somebody's treating themselves, how their self love is very quickly. And then I use those to ask questions and to start conversation. And then we find like the root causes of where they're coming from. And usually from there, by 2 or 3 sessions, we're working on business goals, career goals, whatever it is, because we've worked out this main thing, and now I'm like, okay, let's bring this through to the goal that you have. But for you, you said to me, it's like, oh, you've got this like ideal self, and there's this thing like always said in this self development world, at least that I see, is that you can't wait for a certain thing to be happy. It's like, oh, when I lose 10 kilos, I'll be happy. When I have $10 million, I'll be happy. And it's like, because then when you get that $10 million, you're happy for a bit, but it's only temporary gratification. Then you're like, oh, well, now I need $20 million to be happy. And you're constantly fighting this need. Whereas self love is being totally okay and like, I am good with who I am and where I'm at. Doesn't mean that we're not striving to be better. Absolutely, it doesn't mean that we're not striving to be better. We are 100% willing to look and find ways to be better, but we're also super grateful for who we are and where we're at in life, what we've already achieved. I think one of the biggest things I drill into everyone, I'm like, gratitude every single day. What are you grateful for? And I say, not just the material. You're not just grateful for your house or your dog or your mum. You're grateful for you. Like, how can you be grateful for the person that you are today? How can you be grateful for how different you are today than you were 10 years ago? Like, when you look at that perspective and then like really come to terms with being like, this is me, this is who I am right now. Yes, I still want to be better. I'm still going to strive to be better, but be grateful and have love for yourself in the moment and in the journey, because otherwise you might eventually be happy when you get to that ideal self, but that ideal self is only going to continue to evolve, and you might never actually reach what your high expectation of ideal self is. But if you can be grateful the whole way along the journey, and you can have self love and self acceptance and self worth the whole way along the journey, you're actually enjoying your whole fucking life. You're loving your whole life. But when we say, I need this thing to be happy and I'm not going to be happy until I get there, we push, and we might get there, but then the expectation completely, it's not what we expected. We get there and we're like, oh, actually, no, I'm not happy. I need this other thing. So you can see where this kind of, we just perpetuate this negative cycle of constantly needing and wanting this next thing. And we forget about the life or the journey, because I think with self-love, it's a journey, and it's appreciating and respecting ourselves throughout that journey and loving ourselves throughout that journey, rather than just focusing on the end goal. I hope that made sense. I tend to ramble.
No, no, I love the rambles. I really do. It's I certainly find myself as a type of person to fall into the trap of wanting a particular situation to happen and then being like, "Ah, okay, cool, that's what I want in life." And
Mm.
then it's like I end up sitting there like, ah, what I had before was actually better. Or I'm like, this is not really what I want something else. And
Yeah.
I tend to just, yeah, go north, south, west, and east with when it comes down to uh, finding my ideal life
Yeah.
and all of that. I,
Because what we want always changes. Like, something could happen tomorrow morning that could make a switch go off in our head, and we're like, actually, I don't want that anymore. I want this. So then we've spent all this fucking time working really hard for this one thing, and then for the next morning to wake up and we're like, oh, actually, I don't really want that. And then we're like, oh fuck, well, I've just wasted 3 years. Like, that was me when I left uni. I was like, I've just wasted 5 years of my fucking life. How that? Why did I do that? I didn't have self love then. I'm telling you now. But I look at that and I think, well, how much did I learn from that? How much can I be grateful for that experience and for the time that I spent in that journey, going to uni and trying different courses and doing all the things that I did while I was there? And I can now look back in reflection and have so much respect and gratitude to myself for having gotten through that. Like that was a hard slog, and like in what I was experiencing outside of uni as well as uni. And it's like, because then you can look back on the things that you've done. Well, you've been like journeying towards one point, and then maybe you change course and you go north now. You're like, oh, I'm going to go the other direction now. You're still grateful for the whole journey. You're still like, actually, you know what? We did a pretty good job there. Like, yeah, we changed course, and it's okay. And we don't get caught up in that kind of berating ourselves, because like I could have berated myself for ages about wasting my time going to uni. I'm like, fuck, why did I do that? Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed, but in reflection now, looking at it, I'm like, actually, it was really good for my life and what I was doing with my life back then. So, that gratitude piece is the most important thing. Being able to be grateful for the journey, even when you do change course.
It is. I like the word peace with that because I tend to destroy my own mind when I think about what could have been,
Mm,
especially with respect to you know uh, my high expectations of myself. And
mm,
so yeah, it's a good way to find peace. I find myself being grateful later on, when once like I've changed course or I've gone to a different chapter in my life, I tend to look back at where I was so frustrated and so angry with myself that I look back and then I see the beauty and then I see the gratitude. But being in the moment and still being grateful is something that I'm only really just starting to become aware of the real power behind it.
yeah, and honestly, most of our like hard, challenging things, we definitely are like not in gratitude while we're there. We're like, fuck this. This is shit. I don't like it. But when we look back, which is why like having the practice of gratitude, something that you do every single day. Like I write down what I'm grateful for every single day. When you do that, you are gonna you're gonna actually come to a realization a lot quicker of how grateful you were for that part. Yeah, you might not have been in that moment, but very quite soon afterwards, you are more likely to become grateful for it rather than looking back like 10 years later. Like me with my uni, like straight after uni, I was definitely not grateful for it. But looking back at it now, I am grateful for it. And that was, 5 years ago or something, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, so yeah, it is just about creating that kind of regular practice so that you're actually in habit of doing it. So like I find myself, even when things are difficult, I'm like, okay, like I think about it pretty soon after, if not directly during, and go, okay, what am I grateful for? Like for example, last year I was really sick, and even though I couldn't be grateful in that moment, I just kept saying to myself, I'm going to be so fucking grateful when I get to the other side of this. And even that projecting and knowing that that was going to happen, I was affirming that for myself and eventually creating that for myself and knowing that that end was near. Or and we can do that with gratitude as well. We can do that with a lot of mindset stuff. It's just like affirming what we want to create.
But
So
what if you are very, very unhappy with your particular circumstances that you're in right now? So, say you are only just becoming aware that, okay, I've been working at this job, I'm 25,
mhm,
I hate the job,
mhm,
I hate the house I'm in, I hate living at my parents, or
yeah,
I hate all of these different aspects about my life that I want to change. I want to begin to change my life.
mhm,
So where would someone, with respect to, like health, fitness, changing your goals and all of this sort of stuff that I think a lot of people touch on, how does one begin to sit there and think about what they are grateful for in the now? So they're going to begin to change their life, but what are some of the things that an individual would start to feel grateful for,
yeah,
so that he doesn't start berating himself and thinking, "Oh wow, I've just smoked weed for 5 years straight, and
mm,
I've wasted 5 years, and I've just watched all of this TV, and I've played all these video games, and now, you know, I've got a kid on the way," or like some
yeah,
there's something happening in his life where he needs to start changing. So
Mm.
he ends up hating himself. He ends up hating his inner core.
Yeah.
Where does an individual begin to, I guess, not destroy his soul?
Well, I mean, look, the biggest decision there is by the biggest thing there is by making that decision to change. Obviously, there is a lot more around change. I think the gratitude piece, it's just about getting into practice of doing it. Because when we're in practice of doing it, we're actually in the practice of raising our vibration more often. So when you are in a really struggling state, like when I was really sick last year, I would write down, I'm grateful for my pillow, I'm grateful for my partner, grateful that the shower didn't run out of hot water today while I stood there for an hour. Like stuff like that. Really simple, manial little things because we get so caught up in our lives that we forget that there is so much good in our lives. And especially like saying, oh, for example, I hate the house that I live in. Or even like I hate living with my parents, for example. This is a good example. Fuck, living with parents, like moving back in with parents as an adult, is not a vibe. I've done it and it was not like I love my parents, but no, never again. I will live in my van before I do that. So, okay, so that's a good example. But if you're in that position, for example, you're in that position, you could say, I'm so grateful that I'm saving money because I'm not spending as much as I would be if I was renting. I'm grateful that there's a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I'm not sharing a room with my brother, or my brother moved out and now I've got his room, or my mum changed her gym into a room so that I could have a room. I'm grateful that my parents are, actually letting me come home so that I can change my life. Like, we get so caught up in this kind of like victim mindset of like, oh, my life's so shit. Like, I've just smoked weed for 5 years and now I'm shit and my life's just shit. And like, when you have that mentality, nothing's ever going to change. You have to be like, okay, I've smoked weed for 5 years, but this kid's on the way and now I'm going to change. I really want to change. I really want to do better. Instead of going, oh, I've done so shit for the last year, the last however many years, it's just deciding to change the narrative for yourself, being like, I am going to do better. Yeah, I haven't done well, but now I'm going to do better. Finding gratitude in those little things. But obviously, the change then comes with like looking into your life and going, what is it that I want to change? And how can I change that? And taking those little tiny steps. Like if you've done nothing with your life for the last 5 years, suddenly getting on the self development train, it's a fucking mission. But like the internet is a wonderful thing. Social media is a wonderful thing if you use it properly. And you go online and you go, hey guys, I want to sort my life out. Can someone send me a podcast that I can listen to? Like I actually got into podcasts. I think podcasts were kind of around the same time I did all of this. I started doing yoga because somebody was like, do yoga. And I was like, oh, I'll try yoga. All right, then fine. And much to my own, I thought it wasn't going to be like a thing. I was like, I'm going to hate this. And I really loved it. And then I started listening to a podcast which was called Rise and Conquer Podcast. And I binged it. Like I'd go walking and I'd just listen to this podcast. And by the time I started listening, the podcast had already been out for like 2 years. So there's like a heap of episodes. And I went to the beginning because I'm one of those people, like I'm not going to start something halfway. I'm going to go from the beginning. And I listened to all of them and it just changed my life. But that was because I think I either asked someone or I saw somebody share this podcast online, maybe. Anyway, somehow I came across this podcast. And then through listening to that podcast, there was a guest on there who's my coach now, who's a chick over in America, who also has a podcast, who I've also listened to every single episode that she's got. And through listening to both these podcasts, there was heaps of different guests. So I got all of these different resources coming to me from a podcast, from one podcast. So if you're in that position and you're like, fuck, I hate my life, go and find a podcast. Every second we're on one right now. Every second person has one. And, it's very easy to come across one that you're like, I really resonate with this. Reading books is great. The first self-development spiritual book I ever read was called, I'm pretty sure it's The Art of Happiness. And it's got it's not written by the Dalai Lama, but it's based on like conversations with him. And when I read that, it just changed my perspective on my shit. And I was like, oh, like I don't need to be the victim to this situation anymore. Because when we're not doing well in life, it's so easy to fall into the victim of it. I am the victim of this situation. I'm the victim of my circumstance. We don't say that, but we do by going, oh, I just can't do anything because my life is just shit. You know, we hear this all the time. And it's like, no, your life is not shit. You live in a house. You've got money for rent. You've got Centrelink, or you've got whatever it is that you've got. Like, yes, you still have things to be grateful for. You're not like you're not in a gutter somewhere. Obviously, if someone's in a gutter somewhere, there's a lot more work to do than just being grateful. But like a lot of us, at least in this society, we are blessed with so many things. We get so caught up in whinging and bitching and grizzling about what we don't have, and yet we have so much. I went to Bali 2 years ago for the first time. I'd never been overseas. I'm like so under traveled, and I desperately want to keep traveling. And I'm wandering around, and like before I left, my boss, who drove a Mercedes and was like in his Tommy clothes and was just a real, and he goes to me, "Oh, you're gonna be so shocked. There's so much poverty in Bali. Oh, it's terrible." And I got there, and yeah, there is a lot of poverty, but those people are so happy and so friendly. And I barely came across anyone that was nasty or ungrateful or just rude or being a victim to their life. They were like, oh, they were doing their blessings and their thankings and all that. And it's like, if we could just choose to be grateful for our situation rather than be like stuck up about the fact, like, I've got a 4 bedroom rental. There's no way in hell most of the people in Bali have a 4 bedroom house. So I am so grateful for my ability to be so blessed to afford this house, to be able to live in this house with my partner and not have to share it with other people. Like, we forget. We forget when we're in the shit that there's actually so much good in our lives. And once we start to see the good, we'll then start to see the bad, and we'll be like, actually, I don't want the bad anymore. I want more of the good. So we'll start to pursue more of the good. And then we start to manifest more of the good because we're focusing on it. And that's where we're putting our energy. And where we focus our energy, it grows. We get more of it. So if we can find gratitude, even for the tiniest little things, it compounds and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And then we go, oh, well, I don't want to smoke weed every single day because I know I'm going to sit there and I'm going to do fucking nothing. And I could be doing these other things so that when I get to the end of the day, I'm going to write my gratitude and I'm going to have a list of all these things because, like, we want to create that. It feels good to be in that state. So, yeah, I went on a serious, yeah, you've got a rambler. Good on you.
No, I love the rambles. I can listen all day, to be honest. I think a good way to go forward with this is, all right, I want you to assess me. Let's try and do what we tried to do together a couple of months ago on Instagram, but Instagram is shit. So I wanna. I'll be willing to share whatever needs to be shared. But how about we start off with, okay, so for my personal circumstances at the moment, I'm not where I thought I was going to be at 26 years old, and I'm not as strong as I could be. I'm not as wealthy as I could be. Like, I had a very high expectation to where I would be at 26. And well, to be honest, I find myself getting so frustrated with myself because I feel like I didn't work hard enough. Because that's the reason why it didn't happen. It's because I didn't work hard enough. And there were moments where maybe I should have, you know, trained for longer, or I should have, started the business earlier, or I shouldn't have made that decision there. I should have done this. It's like, looking at your life like a chessboard, a chess game that's already been played, and you
Yeah.
know how well you could have done if you just put your pieces in the right area.
Yeah.
Where and so now I find myself at a standstill because it's almost like I've had a midlife crisis, and I'm literally terrified within my boots that I'm going to be 30 and in the uh, same position, the same amount of income with the same amount of the same job. Um, And so I find myself thinking, okay, perhaps the reason why I've allowed these things to happen is because I'm a weak person.
Mm,
And that for me is one of my biggest fears is being seen as weak, being a coward,
mm.
when I could have, yeah, been brave. So how would you assess that? Um, yeah, how would you assess what I just said to you?
So there was a few pieces. I'll try and remember bits and pieces. One, quarter life crisis is a thing. Apparently, it's a real thing. I'm trying to think. I had some shit going on about that age. Um, Two, the chessboard. Looking back at like any time we look back on our life, like we look back on the chessboard that's already been played. It's like, oh fuck, I should have done it that way. We have to understand that the person we are, the person you were back then when you made that move, is a very different person to the person you are now. You couldn't see the whole chessboard when you made that move. You could only see that one move. And at that time, in that moment, that move was the best move. And when you can kind of look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, I made the best decisions for who I was at that time with the resources that I had, the money that I had, the knowledge that I had, the wisdom, like the experience, everything. When you look at it and go, I made that move because that was the best move. Maybe it wasn't the best move, and maybe you know that back then you definitely made the wrong move, but everything happens for a reason. We make wrong moves all the fucking time because we need to learn from them. If we only made the right moves every single time, the chess game would be boring as all hell because there'd only ever be one winner. And how boring would life be if we consistently just kept getting everything right? Like, oh, I got it right again. I got it right again. Like, it's fucking boring. Like, we're supposed to have challenge. We're supposed to do the wrong thing. We're supposed to make mistakes because that actually it gives us like it motivates us to do better, to improve, to become better people, to learn new things because we are creatures of learning. You know, you see people that are 50 or whatever and they've done the same career forever, they're miserable because they're not learning anything else. You see people that are 70 or 80 and they're decrepit and dying in a home because they stopped learning. They did the whole thing the same thing their whole entire life, and then they retired and they sat on their ass and did nothing. They're not learning anything. We're creatures of learning. So if we don't make mistakes, we don't learn. So that was one ramble. Let's see if I can remember the other part of it.
The aspect of, okay, perhaps the reason why I failed is because I'm a weak person.
Hmm. All right. Well, so what I do as a coach, and I try and stop myself from rambling because I can get fucking ahead of myself, is ask questions. So, the most insightful thing you will ever find by working with any coach is your own aha moments. And usually the coach has asked some question and you've gone, ah, yep. Like you have your own realizations. So, my question for you is why do you think you're a weak person?
Hmm. Because there are scenarios, there are memories that I have where I could have pushed past a very hard moment, but I chose a different path, regardless whether or not it was like um, that wasn't always necessarily the easier one, but I was very flexible and malleable. I still am. I'm a very flexible person. When something doesn't seem like it's working, I kind of simply just, you know, adapt and go another way because I'm very impatient. So if something is not really working, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to change. But
Mm,
in hindsight, perhaps these moments, perhaps I'm just justifying my own weakness that way. And there's another aspect of that is when I tore the cartilage in my knee and I was basically limping for about a year, 2 years. I wasn't able to train kickboxing or dancing or parkour, but I definitely could have gone to gym, could have done swimming, but I
mm,
chose not to because I ended up getting just like I liked being on my feet. I liked jumping. I liked running. I liked kicking.
mm,
And to me, gym was only a way to get stronger at those sports. And so when I couldn't do those sports, I was just like, well, that I'm just going to do something else. And I ended up getting into things like meditation, and that's when I actually started reading books.
Mm.
Um, but but then I look back and I'm like, okay, but if I kept training in the gym, then I would at least be bigger and stronger. And now that I'm able to go back to all those sports, it's almost like I need to start from square one. Does that make sense?
Okay. You pretty much said you said something in there, and you said that's when I started reading books and meditating. Was it a good thing that you started reading books and meditating?
Simple answer would be yes.
You guys can't see, but I'm raising my eyebrows at him. So, even though your path changed and you went a different direction, you still gained a whole plethora of things that helped you improve and helped you become a better person. That version of you back then that hurt your knee, like I'm telling you now, so knees, if you hurt your knee, it means that you need to change your direction in life. Every physical ailment that we have has an energetic, emotional component. So, knees and damage the knees means you need to change your direction in life. And what did that do for you? It changed your direction in life. It made you choose a different path. Yeah, you could have kept going to the gym, but you would have hated it. You would have resented it. You wouldn't have gained as much muscle because you would have been stressed and uncomfortable because you're like, I don't really want to be here. It wouldn't have been so good. Like you're saying I'm weak because I didn't do that, but you would have hated it because your passion was in kickboxing and dancing and parkour, I think you said. That was your passion. So going back to the gym and not doing what you wanted to do, it wouldn't have fulfilled you in the same way that it was before. Whereas instead, you changed direction, you found meditation, you started reading books. I'm sure that's probably something that has fueled your fire to create a business and to develop yourself spiritually. You might never have done that. Like you've always got to think, like when we go back and we look and go, oh fuck, I wish I made the other decision and went that way. Then you lose everything else that has created you up until now because you've gone on this other direction, you've come and you've done all these other things. I remembered before, as you were saying, like, I don't want to hit 30 and feel like I've done the same thing. Like, I'm nearly 30 and I am as broke as I've ever been because I chose last year to buy a van and to build a van so I could travel around. And like now I've got no money, but like I'm not going to let that affect me because I didn't have this goal that I would have, $10 million by the time I was 30. I was just like, I just want to be happy. My goal has always just been, I just want to be happy. And if that means that, like, I've had the same thing, I fucked my knee. And I had no choice. I couldn't go to the gym at all. And I was super into gym. I was a PT. I was aiming to do bodybuilding competitions. Like I was nuts. And my body was like, no, you're not doing this anymore. Like it stopped me from doing it because I was so obsessed. I had the worst like binge eating patterns. I was so unhealthy, but I had told myself that what I was doing was healthy. So then my knee went and I couldn't move for barely 3 to 6 months. I had to stop. And all I could do was yoga. But because all I was doing was yoga, I was meditating. I was reading more. I was listening to podcasts while I was doing yoga, while I was walking. Because you don't listen to a podcast at the gym. You're listening to like metal or psytrance or like screamo. And you're like, I'm not listening to a podcast. So because I fucked my knee, I listened to hours and hours and hours and hours of that podcast, which changed my life. So I don't look back and go, God damn it, I wish I never fucked my knee. I would have been a bodybuilder by now. I'd be on stage. That wasn't for me. That path wasn't for me. And as much as sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish, I want to go back to the gym and get fit again, but the pressure isn't there for that to be the thing. Like, I definitely want to go back to gym, but I'm not going to have that pressure that I need to be the person I was 5 years ago when I was trying to bodybuild, because that's not who I am anymore. I'm going to go at it with a different perspective. So for you, it doesn't mean you don't go back. It means that you go back with a new perspective. Like, let's recreate. Like, how can I do this differently? Like, we get caught up in like trying to recreate the version of ourselves that was like, oh, the perfect version, or when I was fit, or when I was this, or like, oh, when I did that. Like, we are not our past selves. We are our present selves moving into our future selves. we shouldn't get caught up in who we used to be, because who we used to be is gone. There can be aspects of that person that we think, okay, those were really good qualities. I'd like to do that again. Like I loved, for example, for you, I loved kickboxing. I really want to do that again. Instead of being like, oh my God, I've failed because it's been however many years since I've done it and I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, of course, I'm fucking terrified to go back to gym. I used to live there. Like I'd be there for hours a day and I'm like, I'm actually really nervous to go back. But that means that I now get to experience the fun and the passion and the good things about gym again. I get to go and I get to experience overcoming the fear of being seen in public, working out in fucking leggings. Like, I overcame that fear years ago, but now I get the opportunity to overcome that fear again. And like, some people are like, what the I don't want to be overcoming fears more than once. But like, what kind of person are we? Like, how powerful are we? How strong are we if we can consistently get over our fears and put ourselves in situations where we're uncomfortable, we feel unqualified, we feel like we can't do that, and then prove to ourselves that we can fucking do it and go and do it? How powerful are we? So if you can change your perspective, like one of the biggest things other than gratitude that I drill into people is change your perspective and look and going, all right, I'm going to start kickboxing again, and I'm going to become a stronger, more powerful version of me because I'm starting from scratch. I get to learn it all again. How cool is that we actually get to experience like something again? Like I said before, we are constantly learning. So you learn something and then you take a break and you get to go back again, and it's kind of and most of the time muscle memory is a thing. Very quickly your body's like, yeah, we used to do this all the time. Yeah, it might be really hard in the beginning, but you'll find so quickly, you look back and go, fuck, I got this again. Like, hell yeah. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You got to change your perspective on the way you see it, because it's not weak because you gave up. It's strong and powerful because you get to try again. If that's something that you want to do. And if you don't want to try again, then you try something else.
And so how do you, with that though, there's an issue because if you are, say, constantly changing your routes and you're trying all these different things every different year or every 2 years,
Yeah.
you end up not developing, you end up becoming a jack of all trades, which can sometimes be a good thing. But in terms of wanting to, well, create a, be, financially independent and have the family and the car and the kids and the wife and all of these things, it requires a certain level of discipline because you are not able to, sustain. You can't accumulate enough wealth if you keep changing industries. So where does an individual decide to? How does one know when to stay and when to go?
Okay. So that is where you want to be looking at, what do I want out of life? And like sitting down with yourself, pen to paper, journaling it out. What do I want out of life? And if I want wealth, I want a family, I want a house. So, for example, for me, my big goal is to have a house like smack bang on the beach. Like, I want to hear the waves at night. That's how close I want to be to the beach. Now, I've looked that up. In Melbourne, where I want to be, if we stay in Melbourne, is down past Torquay, and it's like $6 million plus. And I think, you know what? Anything is fucking possible. But I look at that and that's something I really, really want, right? I don't give a rat's ass about making money for any other reason except for being comfortable, being happy, traveling the world, and eventually living by the beach. So my means to that end at the moment for me is coaching. It's creating the freedom. So what you want to do is you want to look at your life and think, what is the big vision that I want to create? Like, what do I want to get to 80 and go, yes, I've got all these things. From there, then you go back and go, okay, well, how can I get those things? And to find the career, it's always, what am I passionate about? What do I enjoy doing? Like, what could I spend hours doing and not even realize I've done it? Some people absolutely love working in a trade. My partner is a tradie and he really enjoys it. And I'm kind of like, whatever. Some people really enjoy working in an office doing the same thing every day. Like, if that's what they enjoy, that's what they enjoy. So you think about, like, you've got your end goal. You've got a vision of what you want. And when I say end goal, I don't mean like I am not set on buying the $6 million property down near Torquay. I might end up in Bali. I might end up the east coast. I don't know where I'll end up, but I know that eventually it's going to be by the beach. So I don't. The one mistake we make is we go, I have to have this exact thing in this exact moment, and then we fuck ourselves over because we cut ourselves off to all opportunity when we make a vision or a goal too solid. We want it to be reasonably malleable, which is why I think it's great that you are malleable. That's awesome. Being able to be flexible and move around is really good because when different opportunities come, you will see them. Whereas when you are really stuck and rigid in what you want and what you're getting, oh, I've got to have this one thing, you're not flexible. So you don't actually see, it's like you've got your blinkers on. So you don't actually see the opportunities as they present themselves because you're stuck in this one way. So having your goal, allowing it to be reasonably flexible, and then thinking, okay, how can I get there? What do I actually need to get there? Do I need 6 million or do I just need a comfortable salary every year? Like, what do I need? Okay, now I know what I need. If I need 6 million, is that something I'm going to be able to get if I go and get a job in an office and work under somebody for the rest of my life? Maybe not. Probably not, within reason. Okay, so we've worked that out. We need 6 million. We want 6 million, so we probably shouldn't work, in the generic full-time area. That means I've got to work for myself, or I have to find a company where I'm going to be really supported, where I'm going to, I'm going to be paid really well. Do I need to study for that? Okay, yep, that's something. We've got to consider all of these things, and it's never too late to consider all these things. That's the other thing. You don't have to do it when you're 18. Holy shit, I had no idea what I was doing at 18. I remember actually saying, I'm just going to work for someone else because I don't want to have to worry about it. And then I worked for someone else and I was like, I fucking hate this. This is not for me. I am too self-led to be told what to do by some micromanager with a problem, a toxic problem with their, issues and egos and whatever they've got. So I, was like, all right, well, I've got to work for myself if I want to do that. And now I want to work for myself. I know that's what I want to do. You have a job to get you by in the meantime. And then you're thinking in the background and you're brainstorming and you're journaling and you're going out and you're trying things. Like I wanted to be a PT because I lived at the gym. So I thought, I'm going to be a PT. I'm a PT now. I actually have probably only ever taken 3 or 4 clients because pretty soon after I got my qualification, I realized that I wanted to do life coaching and I wanted to do that. So I have changed my path so many times and I'm only 28. I've changed my path so many times. I've ended up at this point, but I know what I want. So my goal and what I'm aiming for is just kind of keep building, keep growing. And if I get to a point where I'm like, actually, the self-love coaching maybe isn't for me, like I know that I can evolve that. But I do know it's for me because it lights me up so much. Like every time a client comes and they leave, I'm just like, oh, like I feel so good. Like I work with the people and throughout that session, I'm just in this beautiful state of bliss. I'm so happy and I feel so good about it and it lights me up. It doesn't drain my energy. I sleep really well because my energy is like, well, we've been talking to people all day and as you guys can quite tell, I love to talk. So find the thing that lights you up and then find a way to make money out of it. And if you can't make money out of it and, accept that, okay, well, I love this thing, but it's definitely just a hobby. And I'm not fussed. I just want to buy a house and have a family. I don't want to have a $6 million house by the beach. I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be happy. Then you go and you get the salary job and you get by and you put away your bit of money and you go on your holidays and you live your happy life, but then you do your passions and your hobbies on the weekend and in your spare time and you really live and make the most of the hours that you do have doing your passions. So, we can get really caught up in, I've got to make my passion my paycheck. Like, yeah, absolutely. That's amazing to be able to make your passion, your favorite hobby into the thing that makes you money, but that's not always viable. So when that's not viable, thinking about how can I do it the other way and accept that this job or whatever it is, the thing that's making me, that's getting me by. I used to call my job a means to an end. People would go, how's your job? And I go, a means to an end. Because I knew that I wasn't staying there. I knew it was temporary. It was paying my rent until I was ready to set up for myself. And, don't stay in a job that you fucking hate because then you're not going to enjoy your hobbies on the weekend because you hate your job. There are so many careers out there. So if you find that you do have to have a job that just gets you by, find something that you enjoy, at least enjoy doing. Or with people that you really love. Like the people like one of the people I worked with at my last job, gorgeous. She's one of my best friends now. If it wasn't for her, there's no way in hell I would have stayed there. So find the people that you love or the things that you love and do that. But it is also about having a reasonable amount of consistency. Like, very quickly we can find out if we don't like something or if it's not for us. Something will happen. We'll get really sick or we'll stuff our knee. Knees are a killer. If you hurt your knees, guys, have a think about what you're doing because you're probably not doing what you want to be doing. So,
I'd like to touch on that if you don't mind me
yeah, go
interrupting.
for it before I keep going.
How explain that again. So there is an energetic frequency that when you damage your knee, that is like the gods, the spirits, the sign for you to change direction.
So
Can
it's a
you go
bit.
into that?
Yeah, it's very woo woo, and I don't know too much about it. I've only just started looking into it. But there is so ultimately, any physical disease or issue in our body is a representation of some sort of emotional thing that we are not releasing. So every time something happens to us, we store the emotions in our body, which is why we do breath work and we do all this nervous system regulation stuff because it's actually it's getting that energy out of the body. So with Reiki as well, it's clearing those energy centers. So if you've got certain emotions, like a killer one is resentment. Resentment is a killer. We hold on to resentment like it is fucking gold. We're like, no, I hate this person because they did this thing, and we hold on to it forever and we end up with cancer. So every physical disease or issue with our body, it all connects to some sort of emotional, energetic thing that we're not releasing from our bodies because we're choosing not to, or because subconsciously we don't even know that it's there. Or it could even be intergenerational, something that's actually passed down in our line, or from our mothers, or from our childhood, whatever it is. It's an experience or energy that's been stored in the body. So again, I don't know all the different ones, but myself and somebody else that I know have had knee issues, and it's like it's a sign that you need to change direction in life. There's a few books out there. I just read one. It's called "You Can Heal Your Life." That goes into it a bit. I think she does one. "You Can Heal Your Body" as well. And then there's one. It's the Secret Language of the Body, I think the book is called, and it goes through every single body part, every single disease, and it tells you what it is that you're not releasing or that you're not dealing with that's then manifested into a physical problem. So, yeah, next time you have a physical ailment of some sort, it's good to. Google is almost impossible to find this stuff. You can get there eventually, but it is very, very woo woo, and it is kind of. I mean, it's been around for a very long time, but it is hidden because it when you heal energetic things in your body, you release energy from your body, and you do the practices outside of that to stop that from storing there again, you heal your fucking problem. So you don't need Western medicine. So they don't want us to know about this. Nobody wants us to know about this. It's very, very woo woo because people are like, oh, if you think that certain things and you do certain breath work and you do certain things, you can heal cancer. And they're like, no, you can't. But I'm telling you now, there is a lot of people out there that have healed insane physical ailments and disease through releasing energy from the body. And yeah, the knee is just one that means usually you're on the wrong path. You're doing the wrong thing. You're ignoring your intuition. You're doing something that feels like I genuinely thought I was going to be a bodybuilder and I was going to get on stage. And I never listened to my intuition. And I used to have shit go wrong to me all the time. And then suddenly I couldn't walk. And I didn't at the time know that at all what that was. But in reflection, I'm like, it forced me to change, to choose something different and change my path. So when something happens to our knee, it forces us to change. And a lot of the time we ignore it and we don't change because we don't know that that's what it's trying to tell us. And then it usually happens again and worse. My biggest this is going even more woo woo. Our cars are a representation of ourselves. So if you don't look after your car and it is a shitbomb, enjoy what might happen to you as a representation of that. I used to always have a car accident whenever I was ignoring signs from the universe. Like, I'd be getting sign after sign, get out of that job, get out of that job. I'd be sick, I'd be, couldn't work, I'd be yelled at, all this crap would be going on, and then I'd have a car accident. Every time. And it's happened 3 or 4 times. It's like, people are like, you can't drive. And I'm like, never was it me. Like, I only had one accident that was my fault, and that was when I was 18, like every other dumb shit. Every other thing was something happening to me, usually on my way to the job that I needed to quit. And stuff didn't calm down until I, listened to that. So it's the same with the body. When something goes wrong physically, we need to do check and go, what am I not listening to? Is there a little voice in my head that I've been ignoring and now it's given me a sickness? Like last year at this job, I should have left. I should have left in February. I should have left at the beginning of the year. I didn't. I stayed because I thought, it's just, I need to make more money so that I can support myself when I quit. I need to have, a little bit more of a safety net. And I got the worst body anxiety I've ever had in my life. Like, my partner couldn't even walk around the kitchen without me jumping. Like, I'd jump. And I'm like, why am I jumping? I'm not even nervous. But the stress and the turmoil of the workplace, and because the boss had come storming down the stairs and scream at us, and that stress of that workplace physically manifested into my body and it became anxiety. That's how that happens. And I'd never had anxiety like that before. And when I left the job, not long after, went away. Because I needed to get the hell out of the job. Because my body was like, get out, woman! You're not listening to me. And then I had all sorts of other shit happen at the end of last year because I refused to listen to my body. I refused to listen to the signs that I was getting, and I stayed in the job, and I got absolutely punished for it. So I could have looked at that experience and gone, oh, poor me. I was so sick and I had anxiety and I had all these problems, and oh, poor me. But I didn't. I was like, well, I mean, I knew that I needed to leave that job months ago. I knew. I had the voice in my head saying, get the fuck out of here. I had my car broke down. I had a flat tire. Something else happened to my car. So it was all happening and I was ignoring it. And I just got sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. So once you've had an experience where you can really connect the dots and you'd be like, okay, this is connected to this, then you're like, okay, yeah, this is some real shit. But yeah, Secret Language of the Body. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It's an orange book. It's quite big. If you're interested in this sort of stuff, go and read that book and it'll change your life.
How? So you're saying that it's really important to listen to your body. I think a lot of people struggle with that because a lot of people are, well, stuck in their minds or they're stuck in their phone. How does an individual begin to become aware of what their body is telling them? So say they're at a job that perhaps it's not their favorite job, perhaps it's maybe not the worst job in the world, but it's definitely not for them and they probably need to move on, but they're struggling to find the signs. So what kind of signs would an individual see if the universe, the gods, they're telling them to change their life?
Yeah. So usually shit just goes wrong. You lose shit, you lose your keys, you lose your phone, you drop your phone, smash your phone, something happens to your car, someone runs a trolley into it. Like you're going to work and it's not necessarily always happening at work. It's just life. It flows on into life because if you're really not happy with the thing that you're doing, like our work, we spend so many hours working. And yet so many of us disconnect completely from our bodies and we tell ourselves that we have to have this job because that's the only way we're going to be successful, and then we end up fucking miserable. So it feeds into the rest of our lives. It's really hard to live a fulfilling life if we hate our jobs or if we don't like our jobs. So very quickly you will start to see, things just not going right for you. Like gosh, I'm not going to go into details, but when I was younger, before like 24, 22, 23 or whatever, I was not living an aligned life at all. And every single day, something would go wrong. And I was forever berating myself, screaming at my partner, just making mistake after mistake because I just wasn't living the life I should have been living. And obviously, in retrospect, I can look back and go, well, I definitely learned a lot from that experience. If we've never listened to our bodies before because we're super stuck in our minds, that's when we need to practice mindfulness. We need to learn or try to meditate. Now, meditation doesn't have to be sitting there with your legs crossed. It can be going for a walk without music and just looking at the trees and listening to your breath and feeling your breath, feeling your feet on the ground, like simple things like that, bringing yourself into that present moment and just listening. And once you've practiced just listening to your breath, to your heartbeat, the feeling of the grass on your feet, just feeling into your body. Like, we have to start those practices before we go and go, all right, what do I need? Like, I will sit in meditation sometimes and I will say, what do I need to know? Why is this happening? What do I need to know? And I'll get an answer. It's the intuition or it's guides or whoever you want to call it, but I'll get an answer. But I do that nearly every day. I meditate nearly every day. If I don't meditate, I'm at least outside, grounding. I'm doing something. Like, I practice mindfulness a lot. If you've never even heard of mindfulness, you're like, what is this bitch talking about? You want to think about mindfulness is bringing you back to the present moment. So, like, when you take a big breath, you go, I'm just feeling that. Okay, I can feel that. I felt that breath as it came in my body and as it went out of my body. I felt as I dropped my shoulders. I can feel my feet on the floor and my bum on the seat. Or maybe I can feel my hands touching each other or whatever it is. My tongue in my mouth. You kind of drop into that present moment. And you won't be able to stay there for long, because if you're disconnected from your body and you're someone that's like, blah, overthinking, the mind's going crazy, you're not going to stay there for very long. It's going to go straight away. But in practice, choosing, okay, you're unhappy with the job. So how can I be more mindful more often? And that breath, I call it as a mindful breath, just going and just checking in with yourself when you do that breath. That is when you are spending more time in the present moment. The more time you are in the present moment, the more time you are in your body, connecting to your body, the ground, the tongue in the mouth, whatever it is you're doing to connect yourself and to stop your mind for just a moment. You do that more and more often. And then eventually you do the breath, you stop and you go, what do I need? You might get an answer. Our intuition is the voice that comes first. The instant voice that goes, do this. It's like when people say they've got a gut feeling, that's your intuition. So a lot of us feel in our gut if we're in a situation with somebody who we can just feel if they're just not right. Like, we just like, oh, this person's a bit creepy. I don't get a good vibe. That's our intuition telling us, get the fuck away. Move, do something else. So our bodies actually tell us just as much as the signs outside of our bodies. So the car accidents or other things like that, our bodies will tell us, but we have to be willing to take the time to sit in our own space. And when I started this journey, I couldn't sit in the car for more than 5 minutes without ending up, working myself into such a tears that I'd be in tears. Because I just overthink. I had some big drama happen when I was younger, and I would just overthink it. And I'd stress myself out to no end every single time I was ever on my own. Which is why I started with yoga, because I was like, I need movement so that I'm not just sitting here going insane. Because I thought, if I sit here and try and meditate, I'm going to go fucking nuts. So I started doing yoga. I would walk and look at the trees, and I would do these things so that I wasn't just trying, because I thought, I can't sit with myself. How the hell am I going to do that? Now I love being by myself. I'm so happy with that version of me that I'm quite happy to sit and meditate and ask myself questions. But if you've never done it before, it's definitely not like a straight away, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to ask questions, I'm going to get answers. It's not going to happen that way. But it is practice. It is choosing that grounding, choosing that moment of breath and connecting to the body. And then being aware, the more mindful you are, the more present you are, the more aware you will be of shit that goes wrong. Then you're like, that's probably a sign, because that's the third time, the third day in a row that has gone wrong. And that really irks me. Maybe that's got something to do with the fact that I shouldn't be here. I hope that makes
Yeah, I think a lot of people
sense.
definitely struggle with trying to understand what I guess, a lot of people will justify something like a car crash on the way to work 3 times in a week is a coincidence.
Yeah, well, that's what people call it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do
could
you
we?
believe in coincidences?
No, there are no
Not at
coincidences.
all.
No, no. I used to, but now I see it, and like I am nuts. If I get a number plate drive past me, it's got 333 on it. I'm like, look, 333, and I'm like, everywhere I go, I'm pointing out angel numbers, and my partner's like, it's just because because you're focusing on it, you're going to see it more. I'm like, yeah, look, I understand that logically, but I mean, it's great to it's awesome to believe in a little bit of magic, because when we believe in a little bit of magic, there are so many more possibilities out there to our lives. If we go, that's not a coincidence, that is a sign from the universe telling me not to buy a black car. I'm not going to buy a black car. Like, we can read into it as much as we want or as little as we want. I just found that every single time I had some issue with my car, like big issue, it was because there was something in my life I was ignoring. And when I then sat down and reflected on it, I was like, this is definitely why this has happened to me. But I had to believe in a bit of magic for that to be able to be a possibility, because otherwise we just see everything as meaningless. So when we believe in a bit of magic, we give meaning to things that maybe didn't give meaning to. And like, absolutely, we can get a little bit insane with it. I have to be careful with the numbers because I'm like crazy on the numbers. But I'm like, no, it's fine. It's just they're there, and I'm just appreciating that they're there. But we can definitely get a little bit too intense with it. Like, sometimes when we get into this stuff, we get like really intense with like, oh my god, the numbers and the signs and all the things. But also, when you are more present, more mindful, like I said, you'll notice things. You will know in your heart that that was a sign. You will know. You'll fucking know. You'll be like, because you feel it. Your body goes, listen up. Like, it's happened 3 times in a row now and you're still ignoring me. And it's like, and when we are disconnected from our bodies, we don't necessarily recognize that feeling. Like, I was on a path to being disconnected from my body last year. That anxiety was my body screaming at me, like, get the fuck out. And I was ignoring it. And then I ended up so sick because I ignored myself for so long. And the sickness wasn't even around the anxiety. It was a completely other issue. But yeah, we have to be, it's always be willing to change. Be willing to see that there's magic in the world. Because when we go, oh, it's just a coincidence, then that's all it is. But if we go, is there something magic about this? Is there something that this could be trying to tell me? Maybe there isn't, maybe there is. We actually create a more wondrous life for ourselves when we can start to believe in meaning, give meaning to things. That's what religion is, in the most beautiful of senses, without going to all the toxicity that can be surrounded by religion. Religion is giving meaning to something. It's having faith in something. I used to call myself an atheist. And then one day I started to do this spiritual shit and I was like, actually, there has got to be something. Maybe not someone, but there is definitely something greater than the solid reality that I have been taught to believe. And the moment I started to believe in magic and understand, and I have a great respect for religion now, obviously within reason, because there is a lot of bad stuff about it, but there's also a lot of good stuff about it. I started to believe in magic and I started to have faith and I started to give things meaning. My life had more meaning. My life had more fulfillment. I had more gratitude. It can make us understand difficult parts of our lives, things that are really traumatizing. We can look at it from a different perspective and understand, okay, well, there's a reason behind these things. Sometimes that can be really hard if they're really rough. But when we can have that faith in that magic, and yeah, I couldn't even speak to how much it changed my life by just choosing to believe in something greater than me. And the signs and my body and my intuition believing that that is there to tell me something, like believing that's changed my life for the better. Like, yeah, it means I've. It's not like I never have car accidents or never have issues in my life anymore. Because, like I said earlier, like we make mistakes. That's the whole point of living, to make mistakes and learn. It's not like I don't make mistakes and things don't go wrong, but I have a better understanding of them and I can make sense of things rather than, when we're super disconnected, we feel like we can't make sense of anything. Like, oh, why do I hate my job? And why does this happen to me? And why did I have a car accident? Oh, why me? Why me? When we have faith in something larger, we go, maybe it's because of this. And it just makes life easier. At least in my regard, anyway.
No, I actually really love what you said. I think it's really quite beautiful. This idea of, I'm a very outcome orientated person. And so when something is beneficial, regardless of whether or not you can prove it, I tend to just choose whatever's going to give me more power. Because if something like, okay, so, they say some people, you know, hypothesize that, oh, chamomile tea, it's it doesn't actually let you fall asleep any easier. It's just placebo.
Mm,
Okay. Well, depending on what fucking person you talk to, you're going to get a different answer for
yeah.
one. And depending on which study you get, it's all a fucking circus in my eyes. I just think that, okay, well, if this is the general consensus that when you have chamomile tea, you will have a better sleep.
Mm,
The moment you believe that it will work,
it
you
works.
instantly give it more power. I
Yeah.
could do the exact same thing to a cigar if I just convolute my mind and I smoke a cigar
Mm,
and then I think, okay, this is going to give me better sleep.
mm,
I guarantee you're going to probably get better sleep just because of the pure belief. Now
mm.
that in and of itself is enough for me to think, okay, well, it definitely seems like we are capable of um, creating our reality and creating certain things. We're wizards in a way, in part to produce a magic spell, you have to believe the spell is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very. I get really annoyed when people say like, "Oh, like all those signs you've pointed out, like it's just because yeah, you're focused on it." Even if that is true, what you get as a result from, say, you see a number 333, angel number, and you are thinking about a particular topic, and then you see that number, and it's able to direct you towards a more positive future, a more positive outcome. I couldn't care less if it's just a random number. I mean, for me, the gods, they know that I'm not going to listen to numbers because I want them, I'm a very visual person. I
Mm.
need them to, give me pictures. I need them to give me symbols and signs because if I see numbers,
That's not for you.
it's not for me. It doesn't
Yeah.
work. And they know that.
Yeah.
And also because they know that, because I tell them that if I see like some number like 333 or I see 888 or I see
Okay.
911 or something like that, I
Not for
say
me.
I say to myself, I say to them, I'm like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I can't give that enough value. But then I'll see something else where like this is a funny story. So I was driving to work. It's like 5 a.m. and it's the middle of winter, and I'm stressed out in the morning because of a lack of direction. I didn't really know where I was going with becoming a stonemason apprentice, and it all kind of happened like in a way where I just was like, oh, I'm stuck in a trade again. This is really shit. I was thinking like, oh, am I just a weak person? Do I not know who I am? Like, who even is Joshua? Like, who? I still don't even understand like who this guy is. And there's the character. I don't know if you've seen. There's a series. It's a book series, but they turned it into a series on Netflix called The Last Kingdom.
I did
And
watch a bit of it. Yeah, yeah,
okay, excellent. So it's funny enough. I listened to the book of that
yeah.
2 years before it came out on the TV. Yeah, my grandfather gave it to me because he was like, You know, you have Scottish blood. You'll love this, and well, you know, Celtic, Anglo-Saxon
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah.
And anyways, it's so funny because I was thinking like, oh, just who am I? What actually makes me me? Because I was thinking like perhaps I'm just like a side character. Like perhaps I'm just
NPC.
a hey,
You're too aware to be an NPC.
perhaps. But then, yeah, it's funny because I was just driving, and then all of a sudden, there's this guy. Never seen this picture before in my entire life. But this guy, on his car, it has like, "I am son of Uhtred." I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred, and then it's like a silhouette of the main character's, um, yeah,
Yeah.
silhouette, and he just, you know, drives in front of me. As I was thinking, like, who the fuck am I? Like, what actually makes me me? And then, like, I look up. It's like pitch black. It's middle of winter, 5 a.m. I'm like, I'm tired. I'm like, looking at, I'm like, Uhtred, what the fuck? And then I drive closer, and it's just like, I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred. And I was just thinking, like, what the fuck? And then it drove off, and I tried to catch up, and then I lost the car.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't say I'm not gonna say like oh yes I'm the son of kings and warriors, but like there is an aspect to it where okay, perhaps what they're trying to tell me is that I'm not I am special with in regards to my story, that I am the main character, that I am the hero, that I'm not a coward, that I'm not a weak person because I align with this type of character's values.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, you know, I just think signs like that, I think they're really important to leverage off
Yeah.
because if you can feel better about a particular circumstance, or if seeing something will propel you in a certain direction for the better. I mean, fuck coincidences because you know they don't help you navigate the reality of the world. And this is something that the school system just does not teach. They want us to think, okay, if we give you a blueprint and you follow it, then you are going to have the best possible life.
Bullshit.
I totally agree. This is not the way that our ancestors ever lived. They lived with the spirits. They lived with the gods. They understood that when a particular quest line opens up and a character comes in, he's like, "You must save the princess to from Sovngarde, and if you do this, you'll get 10,000 gold coins." And then you think, okay, well that's perhaps part of my story, and so you say yes to the quest, and then you go on the adventure. I
Yeah.
think this is something that needs to be talked about a lot more because so many people struggle these days. They struggle with paths and direction because we're told
Mm.
that spirituality and all aspects about it is complete and utter nonsense
Mm.
just because you can't break it down and like grab
Math.
it and break it up into an atom. You
Yeah.
know, there's a lot more nuances with it. And I think we're only just starting to find the balance between science and spirituality, which honestly our ancestors already had. Like they had alchemy.
It's been
Alchemy is
around.
perfect balance between spirituality and science and to create and how to be aware of truth, which is what science is really trying to do. It's trying to discover truth and how the universe works. The alchemists already had that.
Mm.
They already had it.
But ultimately, truth, even in itself, is completely individual. Your truth is different to my truth. And that's simply because what I believe is different to what you believe and what anyone else believes. And when we can, I think the art of happiness for me is accepting that other people's truth is different. Like, I'm going to go on this path and I'm going to believe in numbers. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I do like myself a good number. You don't believe in numbers, that's cool. Like, I'm not gonna be like, no, well, I reckon you should pay attention. Like, that's what you believe in, that's what you believe in. And absolutely, like, if we believe in something that makes our life better, why the fuck not? If we choose a path or a quest that makes our life better, why the fuck not? Because we have been taught, we've been conditioned that we're supposed to follow the rat race. And then we have all this judgment and this self-hate because we're like, oh, but I'm not in the job that I'm supposed to do, and I didn't go to uni and I didn't do these things. Like, oh my God, because we're told our whole entire lives that that's the life we're supposed to live. And then when we try and step out of the box, it's terrifying because it's like, oh, but that's not the path we should follow. But when we start to go, okay, well, I'm going to believe that there's other possibilities out there. Like, I believe that I am going to have that beach house. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to get it. It's crazy to think that it's going to be a thing, but I'm a believing in the possibility. Just like I believe when I see a certain set of numbers that the angels are guiding me. When I see numbers, I don't try not to individualize them because if you Google them, they pretty much all say the same thing. I go, I'm being guided. Like I saw that number because where I'm going and what I'm doing right now is right. Like we went up to Byron last year for a month in our van. We've been working on the van all year. And I saw numbers like fucking you wouldn't believe. I'm like, tell number. And he's just like, oh my God. I'm like, because we're meant to be going on this trip. He then proposed and it was all beautiful. And I was like, well, no wonder I'm seeing numbers everywhere. Because like, you know, I feel like when I get those signs, they're a sign to tell me that I'm doing the right thing. When I was at that job, I never got them. Never. Like the last couple of months at that job, no numbers at all. And I was like, yeah, okay, universe, I know. But that's the thing that I believe in and that works for me. If you believe in something else, that works for you. If you believe in your religion, you follow Christianity or Buddhism, whatever it is, and that works for you and that makes your life better. And also I think when you're not dragging other people down with your beliefs. You're not going, I believe in this, so you should believe in this. I'm not gonna accept you because you don't believe in this. Like my belief personally is that I believe in what I believe in, and anyone else can believe in what they want to believe in, and I'm still gonna send them love and support as long as they're not berating other people or other people's beliefs. Like when it comes down to that point, and you know, we grow up. A lot of us grow up in a conditioned society where we're taught to fear certain religions in certain countries. So we grow up having all of this fear because we think, oh well, that belief is bad. And that's just from our conditioning, from what we see on TV and what we see on the news. So then we then meet people that have these religions and we don't like them instantly because we have this bias and this fear. Whereas I now try and say, well, I don't hate any religions. I know there are extremists. There are extremists in spirituality. You get a lot of extremists in spirituality. You get a lot of extremists in atheism. But you also get a lot of love in different areas of belief. And when we can just choose love as being like the self-love you said at the beginning, when we can choose self-love and we can choose love and love for the other and love for nature and love for everything that we are and everything that we have in this world, when we can choose love, then we avoid ourselves from fear, we avoid ourselves from hate, then we're happier. I feel like I've definitely gone off track there, but
No, it's absolutely
I
perfect.
was like, where was I going with this?
I think your last point with touching on, it's almost you're almost saying that love is like it's the utmost importance, right? It's what keeps our world
Yeah.
together. Without the love between man and woman, there is no life. Without the love between masculine and feminine, there is no life. And to touch on this idea of like, oh, we all should believe in the exact same things. Like this is very dogmatic.
Mm,
This is not a good way to even run a society, not even in theory. Like the governments and globalists, these weirdos that want us all, being vegan or eating bugs and you know
whatever it
not
is.
driving any cars and things like that. And we all should be like on a cashless society because that's the best thing for the future of the human race. And so many people disagree with this.
Yeah.
And we should all believe in exactly just one religion. We should believe in the religion of science, right?
One truth.
Yeah,
One truth.
it used to be Christianity, which was what they did to the old pagans, the old Celts. They thought, okay, well, if we can get everyone to believe in under the one God, then we have more control over these people. And Christianity was a fear-based religion for a time too. When the Romans conquered Europe, it's like
Yeah.
that was all predicated on you will go to hell if you keep worshiping these false gods.
Mm.
And I've gone to church. I don't hate Christianity at all. I can see the beauty behind it. And I tried to delve into it, but I found out that it wasn't for me.
Mm.
but even though I was on a search, but I ended up finding great solace in in the old ways, and I found a couple of mentors that can help me guide me through. But it's funny that everyone gets so caught up in, oh, if you're not a vegan, then you're a really bad person, or if you are a religious person, if you believe in spirituality, then fuck you, like you're just superstitious, like you don't understand the world. Like they act like they're real smart and mature because they believed what some dude in a lab coat said to them,
Mm.
you know, and when they haven't really even truly experienced, um, well, I mean,
Life.
they've never had an experience with the God, so they've never had an experience with spirituality because they're not open enough for them. I find, yeah, I get so upset when people say like, oh, we all need to be united, we all need to believe in one thing so that we can have this utopia. That's not incongruent with nature at all.
No.
I
Well, like I
mean,
said before, your truth is completely different to my truth. And that's just in our existence, just in our daily life. Your truth is different to my truth. My truth is different for my partner's truth. For us to then be expected to believe in one truth, like it's bullshit. Truth is in the eye of the beholder. Truth is
mm,
like based on my experience and my life and what I've learned, then that becomes what my truth is. So, trying to have one holy truth is bullshit. It's impossible. It is impossible because my perspective of religion and your perspective of religion, even if we are reading the same fucking Bible and we're believing in the same God, your truth and your version of it is still going to be a different perspective than mine is.
did you know that there is 1,400 different varieties of Christianity alone? 1,400.
What the fuck?
Yeah, like an Orthodox Christian told me this, and I was like,
Yeah. Well, that doesn't
"Oh!"
surprise me
And
because
it's only
everybody,
one book, so
yeah, well,
two books, New
everyone has
Testament.
their own idea of everything. My idea of angel numbers is completely different to the next person's, but it is entirely our perspective. And when we take that power back and we choose to say, I am in control of how I perceive my reality, that's where the magic happens. When we say, I have the power to perceive my reality however I choose, obviously, as long as it's for the good of yourself and for the good of the whole and for the good of nature. I'm not thinking, oh, those people are like, I'm going to believe in what I'm going to believe in and I'm going to carry a gun to school, whatever fucking bullshit. But if it's good for you, it's good for the whole, it's good for Mother Earth, believe what you want to believe. Have your own perspective. Stand in your power. Stand in your truth. When people say you have to believe in this one truth, that's fear speaking. They're terrified. They're scared that if you don't believe in that truth, then that truth might not be real for them because they're not actually confident enough in their own belief.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. People only push their fears and their beliefs onto other people when they don't fully trust that belief themselves. So they're trying to push it onto other people in the hope that it makes it more real for them because they don't fully trust who they are or what they believe. So stand in your fucking power, choose what you believe, and be like, this is what I'm going to go with. Like people think I'm nuts when I'm like number, but I'm like, oh, I believe that the numbers mean something to me, so I'm going to stand in that, and that it gives me some guidance. It gives me some confidence. On a hard day, I could be driving and I could see numbers, and I can be like, oh, okay, this is meant to be happening. This is, divine timing or whatever. And it makes me feel better. So I'm not telling you that you have to believe in them, but for me, it works. And so, pick your poison, choose what you want to believe in and stand by it. And if it doesn't work for you, then have a look for other things. There is so much out there.
Mm,
Doesn't, and I think even for those people that do fearmonger and do try and push the beliefs, I try and have a lot of compassion for them because I think, okay, well, you're pushing this onto me because you're scared. You're scared of what might happen if you don't believe. You're scared of what might happen if I don't believe. You're scared. Like deep down, there's only fear and love. And fear is fear mongering and pushing and trying to make other people believe your opinions and getting upset when people don't believe your opinions and don't agree with you. And when you get up in that grill, you are in fear. Whereas when you are in love, you can go, okay, well, I understand that you don't believe that, and that's okay. Like I accept that you don't believe what I believe, and Like, we're not phased by the fact that we're going to be on our own path. We're not phased by the fact that other people believe what they want to believe. And when we can see it from love and compassion and understanding, like, everyone has their own truth, everyone has their own story, everyone has their own experience. Like, one person might believe in a certain God because of their life. I'm not going to suddenly tell them that they shouldn't believe in that when they've spent their entire life believing in that, and that's what their parents have taught them and that's what their schools taught them. Like, I might be able to open their eyes by sharing my beliefs and, saying, hey, this is, what I see. And they might go, oh, actually, I resonate with that. Maybe I'll look into that. I talk about what I believe in the hope that maybe someone might be like, oh, I'm actually interested in that. But at the end of the day, if they're not, they're not. There's no skin off my back.
That's very well said. Sarah, I feel like we could go on this route forever, but I want to respect your time.
It's all right. My partner's apparently, he was meant to get home at 7:45. He had to work a 4-hour driveway today, so I'm looking forward to having his dinner for him. So his dinner's pretty much made, so he'll be home soon. So
Oh, very good. All right. Well, I mean, if there's
we'll have to do a part two.
hey,
We'll have to do a part two, and we can have like a
yeah.
topic. So that way we can like stick to a topic, because I feel like we've gone like a full blown ramble. But if we have a part two, we could stick to a topic, and that'll keep us on track.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, that sounds good. I love part twos. I think, yeah, you've given me a lot to think about. Do you have, with respect to your coaching and what you teach, how can people find you,
Yeah.
and what would be your words to say to an individual that might be thinking about taking your services?
Mm. All right, so I'm mostly based on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook though, and it's my Instagram is called Synergize with Sarah. So that's SYNERGISE with Sarah, SARAH. I'm one of the Sarahs with a H at the end. So look me up. I'm sure you might be able to find me through Josh's Instagram as well. If you're wanting to work with me, reach out. Let me know what it is that you're struggling with, or even just have a chat. Sometimes I can find that I'll start talking to people and they're just not sure. They know it's something, but they're not sure. I do intuitive energy work. So through Reiki and through channeling and through readings, I will actually connect in with guides as well. So that is something that I've been doing recently. So if you were completely unsure where you wanted to go, you could come and do a reading with me. I'll connect in with your guides and I'll ask some questions and see what comes through for you. And if that resonates with you, then we can move forward and we can do coaching, we can do Reiki. I've got programs, I've got my self-love workshops are only for women at the moment, but if I have enough male interest, I do intend to run one for guys. But so far, I haven't had enough interest to allocate a whole. It's a 5-hour session. It's in person. It's in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. So I haven't had enough interest to allocate a whole time. But I do run. They are completely self-love focused. But otherwise, my coaching is, we can connect in with your guides. We can see what it is you need. We can push you in the right direction. And yeah, it really just flows. So if you are wanting to work with me, my books are open. I am available. Contact me on Instagram or Facebook, or message Josh. I'm sure he can pass my details over to you.
Absolutely. With, I want to ask one more question.
Go for it.
Why should someone love themselves?
That's a good question. Well, we all know, many of us know how it feels not to love ourselves. Many of us have lived in not loving ourselves our entire life. Usually, for most of us, it starts to happen in teenagehood. Some of us are unlucky enough that it happens when we're little kids. I know it started for me when I was about probably 11. My best friend decided she didn't like me anymore. I got fat and I liked horses, and I got bullied really hard for that. And I straight away decided that who I was a bad person, and I hated myself for years and for years and for years. And that just compounded from different experiences and different things. And so yeah, we all know how it feels to hate ourselves. You know, some of us have had eating disorders. Some of us have tried to hurt ourselves. It's a hard life to live. We do have a lot of challenge in this life, and we can easily get stuck in the victim of our circumstance, and it's shit and there's nothing I can do about it. I've been there. I was even there 3 months ago when I was really sick. I had moments and days where I thought, how the fuck can I get out of this? And I tried so hard to stick out of the victim, because I've been there before and I didn't want to be there again. But it comes back and forth. So why it's important, why we should love ourselves, is it's almost like a straightforward, like, trick question, is it not? Because if we love ourselves, and I'm not saying egotistically love ourselves, like, oh, you know the difference. There is a very large, those of us with big cocky egos, which was me 10 years ago. I had the biggest cocky ego. I was the biggest wanker, but I hated myself. I hated who I was. So I put on this facade to try and make out to the world like I loved who I was, but I hated who I was. And in time, that behavior has completely diminished, or nearly completely diminished. Part of it still hangs on. But I, in choosing to love myself, I found a great passion for my life. I didn't need to take drugs every single weekend to feel okay. I didn't rely on my partner telling me he loved me to make me feel okay, because I love myself. I love it when he tells me that, and I'm so blessed that I've had a partner. Like, even in my deepest, darkest days, when he met me, I hated myself, but he loved me, and that was a great thing to kind of change. But I got to a point where I didn't need his validation. I didn't need validation from other people. Loving ourselves means we don't need anybody else to tell us what's good and what's not. We are okay with who we are. We love ourselves, or even just be okay with it. We're like, this is good. I'm okay with who this is. And then when opportunities arise, new quests open up, we're like, oh, yes, I'm excited for this new quest, because we know that learning things is exciting, and we know that experiencing new things is exciting, and we know through experience that when we try new things, we gain something, we learn something, we feel better about ourselves. And if we do feel worse about ourselves, then we go back and we reflect and we go, okay, what have we done and how can we do it differently? And we're more aware, because we're choosing to be in our bodies more often. We're choosing to love ourselves. But it is a choice. It doesn't just happen, especially not when we've lived for so long not doing it. It is definitely a choice. And even for me, since I was sick last year, I'm still learning to love myself again. I'm definitely not as joyous in myself as I was, a year ago. And it is a practice. It's meditating, it's doing yoga, it's journaling every single day, it's doing card readings for myself and asking questions of the universe, it's asking questions of my body, checking in with how I'm feeling, doing things I really enjoy doing, making sure that I'm prioritizing my own health and happiness. And then through that, I'm returning to this state of self-love. But it is a consistent journey. And that's why I wanted to coach people on how to do it, because people just don't know where to start. So I start with the basics. I start with self-talk. I start with the narrative and how you talk to yourself and the language you use inside your head and outside your head. So many of us are like, oh, well, I'm just fat, so ha ha ha. And it's like, that's self-deprecating humor. That is damaging to you and to your self-love and to how you feel about yourself, your self-worth. So I teach people how to change that language and how to change the way they speak to themselves, how to show up for themselves in different ways, how to set boundaries with other people so that they're not draining their energy and not doing things that they don't feel good. Like, you do these basic steps and then you get to a point where you're like, I'm pretty chill with this person. And that's where I think that's where the magic is. Because then you go off and you do some fucking cool shit. Once you're at that point where you're like, I'm really cool with this person, then you do some cool shit in the world.
I think that's really well said. I think it is important to like slash love the character that you are,
Yeah.
because, well, I mean, you